Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very delighted to be here at this very important event, the 10th International Conference of English Language Teaching in collaboration with English Language Teaching and Research. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Zahara Azura as one of the author of our study that is about student perception on synchronous and asynchronous learning at Indonesian English Translation class of the English Education Department at Universitas Negeri Padang. Now I'm going to present our study and let me begin with the introduction first. As we know that online learning has been gaining popularity over time, and in Indonesia, online learning has been around since the 90s, preceded by the development of information technology. Since the outbreak of the pandemic COVID-19, online learning was becoming popular in Indonesia. That Indonesian education, the government changed the learning process from face-to-face into online learning. Sari 2020 also said that thousands of educational institutions, including Indonesia, agreed that students and teacher can easily use online platform to learn without having to meet in person. And online learning has gained popularity as well to make additional opportunities available to a variety of audiences. And this kind of learning offers flexibility and participation, ease of access, and confidence, as stated by Yamagata in 2014. Students typically take either synchronous or asynchronous learning mode as part of distance learning, as stated by Sophie et al. 2020. Emilia et al. 2020 stated that synchronous and asynchronous were available in maintaining the consistency of online learning and teaching process, particularly in speaking learning. Nora Unit 2020 also said that students were more happy. Nora Unit 2020 said that students were more apprehensive about speaking English in synchronous learning mode than in asynchronous learning mode. Bevan 2016 said that the best approach for practicing speaking is the synchronous learning. So we can see that the students use the learning mode based on their comfort learning. Indonesian English Translation class is a compulsory program at English education major for the 6th semester students. This class uses Zoom application for synchronous learning mode and discussion forum on e-learning for asynchronous learning mode. This class usually discuss one of the translation tasks of the student which had submitted before. The students should active to participate in a discussion board of uh, the learning mode. However, based on the preliminary observation through an informal interview to the lecturer, it found that there were more passive students during classroom discussion in synchronous learning mode rather than asynchronous learning mode. So the result of this research are anticipated to be reflection for the lecturer in order to choose which mode of learning that is appropriate with the student's learning style or student character, especially in the class that is dominant in writing skill. Finding out the student perception on the advantages of synchronous and asynchronous learning is also crucial in order to know what advantages and that student get in Indonesian English translation class and to know the reason why there were more passive students in synchronous rather than asynchronous learning during classroom discussion. This is also crucial because quite a lot of students who take this course as a subject of choice. Therefore, um, me and my partner needs to investigate the students' perception on the advantages of synchronous and asynchronous learning, like Indonesian English translation class during classroom discussion. We come to the second chapter. It's about there's a few of related theories. The first one is perception. Perception is the act of selecting, organizing, and interpreting data, as stated by Smith 2009. According to David 2009, there are five process of procession. The first one is stimulation, and the second one is organization, interpretation, evaluation, memory, and recall. There are two factors of perception according to Walkito 2004. There are internal and external factors. There are three principles of perception. The first one is not principle is not absolute, but relative. Perception is selective, and then perception is organized, as stated by Selmeto 2010. We come to the second part that is about synchronous learning. Synchronous learning is learning or teaching that occurs at the same time through an electric mode. According to Prevent 2016, there are some advantages of synchronous learning. According to Lini and Gao 2020, the first one that student can ask question in class and receive feedback from the instructors immediately, and the student can also express and share ideas and students without others students simultaneously, and then student can feel blurred and close to ask and answer question in synchronous learning mode, and student and the instructor also supervise them to study during synchronous learning, and student can also find additional insights via the internet while listening to the lectures. Next is about asynchronous learning. Asynchronous, according to Willow et al. 2019, asynchronous doesn't require real-time engagement because it promotes more flexible time. There are some advantages of asynchronous learning. The first one is the student can manage their learning according to their own schedule and study whenever and wherever they choose at home, and student can enables the asynchronous learning enables students to repeatedly watch their course video, so they can feel more adaptable when studying alone. So they are better able to focus on their studies, and then student can deeper learning by regularly watching the course video, and student can pause the video whenever they encounter a college related issue and search for the researches to clear up their uncertainty. This is according to Learning 2020. We come to the third chapter. It's about the methodology. The research design of this research is descriptive. The population was the 6th semester students taking Indonesian English translation class, and the sample was selected by using total sampling, and the total samples was 40 samples. For the research instrument, in this research, a close-ended questionnaire with four scale Likert scale was used, and then the questionnaires, indicators, and items were adapted from Lin and Gao 2020. For the validity and reliability, the contemporary validity was used in this research, and then the Cambridge Alpha with asbestos version 225 was used for the reliability in this research, and the result was 0.938, which meant very high reliability. For the technique of data collection, the only question was distributed using Google Form, and then the students were asked to complete the questionnaire, and the result of the personal answer were double checked. For the technique of data analysis, the descriptive statistical analysis was used to describe the result of this research, and then the frequency of the categories of student perception was discovered, and then the percentage of achievement of the questionnaire was determined, and then the data were classified into positive and negative perception. This is the first finding of synchronous learning. That is the first finding of this research that is about student perception on the advantages of synchronous learning during classroom discussion, and the second findings of the students' perception on the advantages of asynchronous learning during classroom discussion. This is the discussion of this research. based on the findings that have been found, it found that the majority of the students had positive perception on the advantages of asynchronous learning mode, that they could ask some question to the classmate and the lecturer about Indonesian English translation topic that they did not understand yet and get immediate feedback from the lecturer, and they can discuss with the lead classmate and lecturers and that feedback from the lecturer and discuss with the classmate, and the lecturer still could supervise their learning synchronously. It was also found that almost all of the students had positive perception on the advantages of synchronous learning mode, that they could download the Indonesian English translation modules and watch the learning video repeatedly anytime and had more time to think about the Indonesian English translation topic being studied and research and information before joining the discussion, and gave them synchronous give them flexibility to join discussion at their leisure time and allow them and asynchronous learning mode allowed them their classmate and the lecturer to communicate and stay ideas without time limit. It also found that the students were more active to participate in the discussion forum on e-learning because they felt more confident about sharing their ideas using text rather than speaking directly. Based on all of the findings and discussion, it can be concluded that almost all of the students had positive perception on the advantages of synchronous learning and asynchronous learning at Indonesian English translation class, which is dominant on writing skill during classroom discussions. And also it was also found that the students were more active to participate in discussion forum on e-learning. It was because they felt more confident about sharing ideas using text rather than speaking directly. I believe that lecturers would be more flexible in selecting the best learning mode for their class, especially in a class that is dominant on writing skill because of the difference of the students' learning style or student character. They can try to combine both of those methods in order to have evenly distributed in learning objective, because both of online learning, asynchronous or synchronous learning, have their own benefits. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, that we can share with you the result of our study about STEM perception on the synchronous and asynchronous learning at Indonesian English Translation class of English Education Department at Universitas Negeri Padang. I hope that this will be useful for us, teachers and lecturers, and thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.